Hi, so welcome back for another session of Mrs. Hewitt's Spelling at Home. We've got quite a simple root word for you today. Your root morpheme is a bound morpheme because it cannot be a word on its own, and it is this one. So it's the sacr, and obviously you're going to have things added on here because we've got that almost start of the next syllable there, haven't we? So we've got sacre, and that is from the Old French sacre, which is from the Latin sacrare, which is to make sacred, okay, or to dedicate something. So all these things are in that sense of something being holy, really. So, to do with the church, to do with being sacred. So that's where this root comes from the Latin. It's time now for me to pop the word grid up. You can see we haven't got any prefixes here. You can sometimes have words that have like unsacred, but it's not that common. Don't forget we're focusing only really on the words that I think you might be using. These word grids never have every single word you can make on them because they would be huge. So I'm going to pop this up to the screen, and then that is your time to pause the video and see if you can build your words. Have a think as you're building your words if you do need to apply any spelling rules. So try to do that as you write the words rather than wait for me to show you and then make your corrections, because there may be some places here where you do need to apply some of those spelling rules. So see if you can spot that before I tell you today. Okay, so get ready to pause the video. Okay, let's have a look at which words you have done. I've done on my grid here, on my answers, my word sums. So we've got the sacred plus the ed, and we actually say that as sacred. Okay, so it looks a bit like sacred or sacred, but we actually pronounce it as sacred, and that does just mean holy. If something is sacred, it's the adjective that describes it as being like a holy thing, something that is worshipped, okay? So it is sacred there. Now this is the word that you probably will be most familiar with, which is sacrifice. So we've got the sacrifice there. The fice bit of sacrifice comes from the Latin facere, which means to make or to do. So this is like the act of doing something for a sacred purpose, basically. So if you're at a sacrifice, and I've put sacrifice in, and hopefully this is one of the rules you got, you're dropping that E when you add the ing. So we can say we are sacrificing. So you might be giving something up for a reason because you're dedicated to it, things like that. Okay, so we're sacrificing. This E goes as you add the ing. We've also got sacrificial and sacrificially. So talk about something being sacrificial. It's the adjective that describes you sacrificing, basically. So it was sacrificial, and then they did it sacrificially, yes. So the ly is the adverb. But again, we're dropping the E when we add the ial, and it's that shall, so sacrificial, but it is with a C because of the fice bit having a C. So a bit like that shun, sometimes we don't know if it's a T or an S. Sometimes with shall, you don't know if it's going to be a TIAL or a CIAL. But again, looking at your root word that it's attaching to will give you a clue. So sacrificial, because it comes from sacrifice, which has a C, the shall has a C as well. Okay, so we've got sacrificial. We've got there sacrament. That is the noun, so that is the thing that is sacred. Okay, so it could be a sacrament, could be like a document, something to do with being holy. Okay, so that is more of a thing, the noun. And then at the end there we've got sacrilegious, which surprisingly actually doesn't have anything to do with religion, because you can see there it is the I there, not an E. So although it sounds like we say sacrilegious, actually comes from this ledge bit, meaning to take away or steal. So the idea of something being sacrilegious is about it being taken from being holy, so sort of going against the holiness, a bit like unsacred, I suppose. But sacrilegious, you would think that it means not religious, that sacra means not, and it means not religious. It's actually stealing from the sacred, stealing from the holy. So sacrilegious comes from that. And again, we've got sacrilege. So that's kind of, you could say, oh, and that was sacrilege, as if it was something that was done that was kind of really out of order, really unholy, or sort of tarnishing the name of something holy or something religious. So sacrilege and sacrilegious, and again dropping that E when we actually changing that to an I to make the eus, sacrilegious, but we change that E to an I when we add the us ending, okay, sacrilegious. Now they're quite long words, and they're probably words that you wouldn't necessarily use, but you might come across them in your reading. So it's important that you do kind of have that knowledge. This is where word study is really good for your vocabulary as well, because just by knowing, you probably have heard of sacred, you probably will use or have heard of sacrifice. Okay, so that's good, because what you can do is, right, I know sacrifice, I know sacred. So if you were to come across the word sacrament or sacrilegious, you still might think, oh, I can recognise the start of that, recognise that sacra bit. That's normally to do with something holy, and we can sort of have a guess at what it means. So this is why it's useful for building your vocabulary and noticing patterns that go across lots of words, because if you know what one of those words means, you might be able to use that knowledge to help give you a clue to what another word means when you come across it in your reading, especially as you get older and you come across harder, more complex words in the text that you're reading, okay, or reading across lots of different subjects. So, some of these you might come across when you're studying RE, when you're at secondary school and things like that. So it's useful to know and to hold this knowledge in your head and make the links between the words. Use your word study knowledge. That's what we say, isn't it? So they were your words that we made. I want you to focus on using sacrifice, because that's the word that you're going to probably use most, and sacrificing, sacrifice, to making sure you spell that word correctly. And the other ones are more for you to kind of think about what they mean in case you come across them in your reading. So you need to go away and write your sentence now using something to do with sacrifice in it. And then that is it for this week. And I will see you back here next week for some more Mrs. Hewitt's Spelling at Home. Bye.